Hi, picking right back up on the tax withholding. So you are currently over withholding approximately $9,000, and that is making a big impact to your monthly cash flow. So I'd like to get you into a what I call a net sum zero situation, where you're not over withholding but you're not under withholding either, okay? And you're going to be able to do that by changing your exemptions at work. So looking at that, that'll add about $600 a month to your cash flow. So that's a big amount of money. If we look back at the recommendations, number 3, the second part is going to look at, the debt and how we're going to restructure that. You are currently overspending every month, and that is not a good situation. That is just going to perpetuate your debt, and you'll erode your goals and you won't ever be able to achieve them. So we need to do a restructure of that debt and make it less burdensome to you, get it kind of cleared out so that you're able to start saving towards your education and more towards the retirement. So it says the first step is going to be to follow the immediate debt restructure. There is a separate page behind the recommendations and the tax analysis on the immediate debt restructure, and let's go through those steps. You had talked about being comfortable selling one of the 2 stocks, and I've recommended selling stock A primarily because of the value. Taxes for the gains on either of the stock were not a tremendous factor. It simply was, how are you going to get in the position quickest to achieve your goals? And so it really primarily centered around your getting on top of the debt, feeling comfortable about your monthly cash flow, and getting into a position to start saving for the education. So I talked about selling stock A. I have listed it net of a 2% commission, which is standard. And I've also talked about selling the ATV. And John, I know that it's been a hobby that you've enjoyed, but I think you really want to challenge yourself that you're doing it in a very high-risk way without any insurance. And is that really where your family should be putting its priority versus education? If you're coming and you're saying that we're really wanting to get on board with getting something started for education, this is the way that it's achievable. So let's keep walking through how it's laid out. I know that you didn't necessarily know I was going to put that in. So that would give available cash that's able to pay off immediately the credit cards, the student loans, and partially the bank loans. A credit card, we do not want to have that debt. You do not want to carry over debt. You do not want to add to that balance. Student loans, it's not necessarily bad debt, but the interest rate is pretty high for you guys, 10%. So if we can, we want to get rid of that as well. The bank loan, I know you took it out to help kind of restructure the debt to begin with, and we want to make sure that we take care of that payment. So you'll see you still net a little bit of cash. So I think you should reward yourself and take yourselves out to a nice dinner. That you're really putting the family first here, and you're making really healthy decisions now for your financial circumstances. You'll see to the right of that box, I have the bank loan, just so you see, it's not being fully paid off in this transaction that I've listed. But with your monthly payments, then it's going to be paid off by the end of April. Doesn't that feel great? You're going to have no credit cards, you're going to have no student loans, and you're not going to have a bank loan. Your auto loan is at 5%. That's a very reasonable interest rate right now. And by getting this debt off the books, you're going to be in a position to refinance. Right now, if we just shifted this debt that you do have, you mentioned a home equity line that you do have. We don't want to use that home equity line because we still have the debt. It's earning a lower interest rate, and that's good. But if we want to refinance to lock in a fixed term, that 4%, you won't be able to do that until we bring down the debt to income ratio. That is how we're going to be able to do that. So after we can clear out some of that debt, you will be eligible to do a cash out refinance. I'm recommending doing it by June. Okay, we're going to take the mortgage balance up to 80% loan to value. That's $288,000. Okay, locking in 4% interest on a 30-year. That's a mortgage payment of $1,375. Principal and interest $1,375 a month. That is quite a bit less than what you're paying now. It will cost some money to refinance. I've listed that, plus paying it off, but you will still net cash. That's why it's called a cash out refinance. You will net some cash from the transaction of refinancing, and you're going to put that towards your money market, right? We're going to start building that cash cushion that you've started. So we're going to add that cash to it. Looking back at the recommendations, so we're going to keep then a refinanced mortgage and also the automobile loans paid off in 2 years. There's no necessary, there's no need to pay it off sooner than that. Okay. Turning the page on the recommendations, you'll see the impact that this can have to your monthly cash flows. Again, these are estimated numbers, but I want you to see, so you can kind of understand where I'm going with my advice here. Right now, you are averaging a negative cash flow of over $1,700 a month. Okay, so that's kind of our start position. By updating your tax withholding, that's going to increase the income coming in by $740. You will not have a credit card payment, you will not have a student loan payment, and you will, after April, no longer have a bank loan payment. That is a savings of over $1,500 every month. The change in the mortgage is going to bring down your mortgage payment by $600 a month. So I've added in also the insurance policies that we've talked about being the critical insurance updates that we need to do right now. Still, that is going to change your monthly situation. Instead of losing money, you're going to be having the ability to save $1,000 a month. That's an incredible difference. And you're going to feel it. You're going to take that $1,000 after the refinance and you're going to put it towards building that cash cushion, right? We talked about taking the cash out refi and adding it in. Now I want you to take every single month $1,000 for the rest of the year. That's going to take that cash cushion up to over 4 months of a cushion. So if something goes wrong, if the furnace breaks, if you do have some medical bills initially, you have somewhere that you can take that money from, okay? The last step in the recommendations is going to be to begin the education savings. After we've gotten that cash cushion up to a comfortable level, and that's typically going to be 3 to 6 months, then you'll begin saving towards the education accounts, and we'll use the 529 account for that. My anticipation right now is that it would be around $4,000. It's very manageable given how the cash flows are going to change, okay? And you've talked about how both sets of parents have offered to put some money towards the education as well. And what I'd like to do is have them match what you're saving. So that's going to be a way that we get the total savings up to $12,000 a year. Both sets of parents plus you contributing $4,000 a year. Okay? We're going to take a look at what that education goal looks like. If you go back to the agenda just briefly, you'll see that on the next meeting, before you come to the next meeting, I want you to not only set that appointment with the attorney, but update that tax withholding exemption at work so we get that taken care of, and also have a conversation with your parents. Talk to them about the education goals and see if they're comfortable with the numbers that we've put together. Okay? Now, if you open up the education goals document, what you've talked about providing is coverage for one of the in-state schools that is currently $17,000 a year for 4 years. You want to be able to pay for undergrad, but have the kids cover themselves or through scholarships and loans graduate school if they attend. So $17,000 a year. Historically, costs have been increasing at 5%. I've included 5% right now in the assumption. That did actually come down last year, so I feel comfortable that we're using a conservative value. And so what this is going to show on that first page is Jack's education. And the costs if you look to the right in that summary box, total 4-year cost is $131,594. That is what $17,000 a year with a 5% inflation on it turns into. Okay, and you'll see at the bottom of that summary, it's 100% funded. By putting the savings plan in place into a portfolio for a long-term growth, earning, in this case it was 8.39%, just shy of the 8.5 that you have stated, you know, we're able to fund that college education. Right behind Jack is Jill, and we've got her 4-year cost slightly higher because again she's going to be a few years later. The 5% inflation ticker behind that. So 152,337, still 100% funded now that we've gotten the education savings rolling. And finally, you'll look at Jane. Again, the additional costs of a few years, but still 100% funded. Just to the left of the 100%, you'll see a figure $20,445. That is the excess savings in the education accounts if the plan assumptions work. Now, of course, we're going to want to revisit this as well, but I wanted you to see the power of the numbers and that you not only can get your debt situation under control, but you do have the ability to achieve saving for your kids' college. That's a huge feat that you should feel very, very proud of. Okay. Now, I want to speak briefly about the retirement goals. I don't want to spend too much time because it is at least 25 years off. And whenever we do a plan, you know, it's important that we put together a plan and that we have one that we're working towards. But we also have to just monitor it. And every year we're going to assimilate what's changed for you internally in your lives, what's changed externally with the markets, with the environment, with the outlook, with general retirement planning. And we need to assimilate that information so that our plan is going to be constantly updating and more accurate for you, especially as we really get closer to the retirement age. So I want to cover kind of where things stand now, but I don't want to get into too many details because we'll spend more time with that in years down the road. If you open up the goals document, you'll see that I've summarized some of the goals that you mentioned, which was retiring at 62, both of you. And you mentioned initially, and we've kind of talked about this, that you wanted 70% of your current income. And it's really important to actually segregate that. So your current income is covering taxes and savings and mortgage and living expenses. We want to really separate what are you living on right now, what are you paying for the mortgage, which has a fixed term to it, and isolate those two. So it's under $3,000 right now that you're paying per month for living expenses. That covers insurance, that covers your utilities, that covers your entertainment. So that is separate from your taxes and from your debt payments. And that's what I've isolated here, saying the retirement spending would be $3,000 a month right now. The same that it is right now, not less, the same. And I've grown it by 2.5% inflation every year. Okay. We have an annual savings listed right now of what it currently is, John. But once we get the refinance done and the debt restructuring, you will have the ability to increase that savings, and I'd like you to target 7.5% right now. We'll look to increase that perhaps down the road, but that is the immediate goal that I'd like you to strive for. College costs are listed under other spending goals. We won't go into that in further detail since we just talked about it. Other income sources, the Social Security estimates that you gave me are listed at the full retirement age of 67. And I want you to be clear that I have not included taking them early, despite that you would retire earlier than 67. I don't advise that you take Social Security early. Rather, we'll supplement the income stream with withdrawals from the portfolio. We can do a whole Social Security analysis once we get closer to retirement, but I just want you to be clear on how the model is set up. So then turning to our retirement charts, the first chart is going to show your retirement expenses. This is going to show your living expenses. That $36,000 a year right now turns into $69,031 in the first year of retirement. We've got a mortgage payment since we're refinancing for the first 5 years of retirement. And taxes are going to be that darker blue. Those are automatically calculated based on the tax code. Okay? You'll see in the right box on the summary that the total cost of retirement is going to be $3,118,623. It's a big number, I know. But let's take a look at the next chart and see what other income sources are coming in. We've got here the blue being the Social Security that's going to come in again, not starting until your full retirement age. And then green represents required withdrawals from the 401k. Once you are in your 70s, you are required to take some money out regardless of other income sources. So that's listed separately. What you'll see in that black line is that's the cost of retirement. So now you'll see there's some gap that we need to fill, and that, if you turn to the next chart, is filled in with the color purple. So you can see that the cost of retirement in that summary is $3,100,000. Retirement inflows are almost $2 million. So supplemental withdrawals to net the gap is going to be $1.2 million. And that's that purple color over time. And what you'll see is that the largest withdrawals are going to be in the first few years, like we talked about. The next chart is going to just show the assets and how they grow over time. Important to note that the dark orange is your home. It's growing at 2.5% in the model, and one of the things that I've indicated is that we don't want to liquidate. We don't want to be in a position where you have to sell the house in order to afford retirement. We want to look at other options if that's the case. So if you take out that dark orange, you can see that you are barely making it to that anticipated death, which is 91 in the case. And I'm not alarmed at this because it is 25 to then 55 years out of a plan. There are so many factors that are going to change that I would not be comfortable with this scenario if you were retiring tomorrow. Okay? But we'll come back and we'll review this again and again. So I know, because it is so far away, there are some circumstances that could change. Maybe you wouldn't retire at 62. So I took a look at the next set of charts. It's going to be the same scenario, only instead of retiring at 62, you don't retire till 65. And what I've even done there is say, okay, and instead of $3,000 a month, let's change it to $3,500 a month. Whether that $500 a month, you just spend, maybe you take a vacation that's, $6,000 a year. That's helpful at Christmas, that's up to you. But I have included that. So expenses are going to be a little bit higher in this one. Retirement income, it will be similar. And once you get to the looking at everything in retirement, you'll see the purple is much less because we've allowed the assets to grow that much longer. And you can see what a dramatic impact it actually makes when you take a look at the assets chart, which is going to show on the left the original scenario, and on the right how the retirement assets have changed, even though we're spending more in retirement. So there's a lot of factors that are going to have a tremendous impact when we start to look at retirement planning. So I know that we're running out of time, and there's other details in your additional resources that you can go through and actually look at every single year's cash flows, so in more detail, to see how I've built this plan. And I don't want to spend too much more time on it because everything that we've done today will eventually change, and we'll need to, update this as we go along. So going back now to our meeting agenda, the last item that I would like you to do immediately before we meet next is look at that immediate debt restructure plan. Selling the ATV, selling the stock. Are you comfortable with that? Do you understand why I'm recommending that and the position that it's going to put you in? I've included some income statement projections for this coming year. I've looked at the balance sheet and where I expect that to be this year. And you can also take a look at your ratio analysis and how I think that that's going to really significantly improve your financial position and your ability to use that going forward. So take a look at that. We'll get together again, and then we'll talk about implementation. Thanks, guys.